God is a woman. The reason I say that is because the divine has more feminine characteristics than it does masculine. And that may feel like a weird thing to say because the traditional view of Christianity, for instance, has always been that God is a man. We've been conditioned to believe the divine is masculine, and the Bible exclusively refers to God as he. But I think, and this is just my opinion, I think the only reason the Bible uses he for God is because of the time when it was written. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, was written in the ancient world, where the patriarchy was very strong and masculinity was considered sacred even. I mean, the Old Testament has like two books, Esther and Ruth, that have women playing a central role. Every other story, from Genesis to the last book, is pretty much centered around men. It was a patriarchal society, and that is the only reason why everyone writing at that time would refer to the divine as he. And if you follow my content, you know I like the teachings of Jesus, and you might be thinking, well, Jesus refers to the divine as the Father over and over. So what do I make of that? Well, for starters, Jesus was a philosopher. When he says the Father, I don't think he means what we think the word Father means. Take this as an example. Jesus said, I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Just think about that for a second. Do you think he means what we think the word Father means? Like, can you have your Father in you? Or can you be in your Father? It obviously doesn't make any sense. You cannot have your Father in you. So Jesus clearly doesn't mean what we think the word Father means. When he says the Father, he's not talking about a human man. It wouldn't make any sense if I told you that I am in my Father right now. I am in my human Father, and my human Father is in me. That doesn't mean anything. It's not possible. So Jesus clearly uses the word Father to mean something that doesn't subscribe to our human understanding of the word Father. That's why I said he's a philosopher. When he says Father, he's not talking about a man. He's talking about the source itself. And here's why I think the source is more feminine than it is masculine. When Jesus said, I am in the Father and the Father is in me, I believe he wasn't just referring to himself. He was teaching something about how reality itself is structured. When he says, I am in the Father, he's not just talking about himself. He's telling you that you are inside the source at all times, and the source is inside of you. And that makes perfect sense because it is the divine that animates your body. It is your very life, your breath. If you weren't inside the source, you couldn't exist. It's like fish inside water. You and I are the fishes. God is the water that allows our very existence. Without the water, the fish have nothing to live in. So we are always inside the divine. And guess where else you see something very similar to that happening in our human context? It's a baby in the womb. When you're in the womb, your literal surroundings, everything around you is your mother. Your sustenance, food, nutrients, water, everything you need for life itself is your mother because you live inside of her. Is it so crazy to think that that is exactly what is happening right now? The very air you're breathing, the water you drink, the food you eat, your very sustenance is only possible because you're inside her right now. God is a woman, but obviously that's just an idea. To reduce the infinite into a description like that is obviously small and stupid because the infinite cannot be described. But still, I think it's an interesting idea, and personally, I use her almost all the time. I don't say he.